Cool. All right. Good morning, Dr. Alvaro. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm doing great, except for the fact that it's it's flooding here in New York. I don't know
Oh,
where do you live?
I'm in Texas, and it's not flooding here. The
Yes,
weather is pretty nice. It was hot a few weeks ago, extremely hot, but now it feels really good. Fall is here, and I'm excited about it.
that's great because we have a lot of rain. It started last night
Uh-huh.
and it's just relentless. And
Yeah,
as a matter
yeah.
of fact, I have to tell you, today I was supposed to teach a class on Friday. Typically, I teach a class in the morning, but
Mm-hmm.
they canceled. They closed the campus because of flooding.
Wow, that y'all getting that much
It,
water?
it's that bad. Yes.
Whew, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, come on down to Texas if you need some relief.
I wish.
Yeah, Dr. Evero. So were you born and raised in New York, or is that where you from?
I was born in Italy,
In
in the
Italy.
city of Turin. If
Mm.
your Italian geography, Turin is in the northwest.
In the
It's
Northwest.
it's a big region, very close to France, below France. So it's right up there.
Oh
My
wow.
Yeah, and I came here to study. I did all my undergrad and graduate studies here in the States,
Mm-hmm.
in New York, and I've been living here in New York for many years, over 20 years now.
Over 20 years. Wow. Well, yeah, I discovered you through YouTube. I have been a vegan for going on 6 years in November. And I don't know, I went down a rabbit hole. I was started researching raw vegan because I was like, you know what, let's change it up for a week or two. And I found your video, and it was a Zoom video. And I've never watched a Zoom video on YouTube before that long. And it was so interesting. Like the information you presented, it was kind of like mind blowing, especially whenever you started talking about how our hands and our teeth and things like that. Some people think that we're quote unquote supposed to be, carnivores, but you're like, no, we're actually more omnivores. And I just started thinking, I'm like, oh, wow. And I've been going, I've been raw vegan for this is day 7 today. And I just want to try something different. Day 1 was kind of hard, trying to get through those body aches and pains. But day 2 and day 3, I have more energy. I know whenever I cook food, I'm a vegan chef, an influencer. Whenever I cook food, sometimes you feel tired and everything like that. And whenever you're talking about the body, the pancreas and everything having to produce more enzymes that are to break down things in your stomach, I was like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. So this interview here is basically to talk about, raw veganism, and then also the 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 onset of lab grown meat, how it's becoming so popular to this day. I know there's a lot of vegan people who may, try to, come at me, but I'm totally prepared for it because I think that after reading your article you sent to me, we're creating two different types of, we're creating the two same problems. We have animal agriculture, farm raised animals, and then we're going to try this whole new thing where it's about lab grown meat. So I know I sent some questions over to you earlier, and I just want to, ask those questions. Feel free to answer them however you want to. And this interview is very open, very free, and voice your opinion on how you feel on everything.
Right. Well, one thing that I wanted to say, well, actually, before I start, please help me stay on track because I noticed that a lot of interviews I go off on a tangent. So if I do, please put me back on track. Okay.
Okay.
But I wanted to start by saying this. There 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 have been several cases. I just mentioned two. One was Little Tyke, and the other one was the spaghetti lioness. I don't know if you ever heard of these cases.
No, I never heard of them before.
Right. So these were the first one was, I think it was born in the 80s. I don't remember very well the dates. But the bottom line is that there were two lions,
Mm-hmm.
these two lionesses, uh, that were completely vegan or vegetarian. Okay, and they thrived. They completely thrived. They did very well. So the point why I'm mentioning this is because I hear a lot. I hear this a lot. We can't be vegans, but what about carnivores? And you mentioned carnivores at the outset of your speech,
Mm-hmm.
and I find it very bizarre that people actually believe that meat is required for some organisms, but not for others. Meat. Let me break the spell. Nobody needs meat,
Mm-hmm.
not even lions. There's evidence. Lions thrived on a vegetarian or a vegan diet. Okay, they the spaghetti Leah, the lioness, the spaghetti lioness, the her owner, let's call her owner, fed her completely vegan diet because he was broke. He had this lioness, and he would feed her spaghetti. That's why they named her the spaghetti lioness.
Mm.
She was doing very well. The other one, little Tyke, was also vegetarian. Now, why do they eat meat? You might be wondering. Well, they eat meat because they are born and raised in an environment where they are predators and they eat meat. You're not going to see a lion picking mushrooms and berries.
Yeah.
But I just want to break the spell. Some people, even vegans, even among vegans, this is what hurts me the most. Even among vegans, many vegans say, yeah, but there's no yeah, but. Meat has no magical powers. Just
Mm-hmm.
because you ingest some flesh, it doesn't have a magical property or any sort of property that will enable you to live better, to get more proteins or more micronutrients. It's all a myth. Not even lions require to eat meat. It's documented. There's evidence. Just look it up. That's what I
Wow.
wanted to say.
Yeah,
Now,
that's
oh, yes,
amazing. No, I was just replying back. Keep going.
no, because I just can't, I can't stand people saying, well, but but what about my dog? Can my dog be vegan? Your dog wants to eat food just like any other organism on earth. They want to eat food. The organism doesn't say, this is not meat. I'm not going to grow my muscles. It doesn't work that way. You can have a vegan dog, a vegan cat, as long as you feed them, as long as you give them enough calories to survive. That's what's important. Now, on the other hand, there are foods that are toxic. For
Mm-hmm.
example, for example, let's say dogs should not eat chocolate. It's not fatal, but it's toxic. Okay, it's not very good to them because of theobromine. Now that's a real thing. It's an alkaloid, I believe. It's called theobromine. It's in chocolate and cacao, and it's toxic for them. That's a different story. Squirrels should never feed legumes, beans to squirrels because they're bad for them.
Mm-hmm.
They might eat them if you give it to them. Here in New York City, you walk through Central Park and you see squirrels eating whatever people discard. Um, I I saw this squirrel once um, eating French fries off the hand of some guy who didn't know that was happening. He was on the phone, distracted, and the squirrel jumped on a park bench and it was starting to eat his French fries. They're going to eat anything that they find, but there are foods that are not optimal. So the story, long story short, okay, it boils down to this. The story about raw veganism, a lot of people talk about raw veganism there are many ways of being raw vegan. You have to be careful about being raw vegan, and I can explain why. But it seems to me it's the optimal diet for human beings. There's nothing there's nothing better than fresh vegetables, fresh living food. So I think it's obvious. Now, when people say, well, you have to be careful because the raw vegan diet is not as good as they cracked it up to be. Well, you have to be careful, for example, that you have to be sure to eat enough calories. Because as you know, fruits and vegetables are higher in volume and in water content. So you might be thinking, I'm eating enough food, but in reality, you're eating 300 calories and you feel your belly like you ate 2,000 calories. So that's one thing. And typically the people who try, they come to me and they say, I failed because it didn't work for me. No, it's not that it didn't work for you. You didn't work for it because you were not eating enough food. You were eating too few calories. Okay, that's one thing that you have to understand. Other things is, for example, other things you have to be careful not to overeat fatty foods, and that's very easy in a raw vegan diet. Eating too many avocados or too many nuts or too much of that stuff. So it's not an easy diet. I have to admit it. It's not an easy diet. It's certainly optimal. And for all those people who are contemplating such a diet, I would highly recommend it. And if you're scared or you're afraid, you don't know what you're doing, just don't go 100%. Just eat as much fresh food as possible.
That is true.
That never fails.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people, I post on, my Instagram stories, and people like, I have quite a few people asking me, how do I get started? Basically what I did, I started off watching your video, and then I went and watched some other people there's some people who are doing it more extreme, who are doing only fruit. There's, some people who are doing no fruit. There's a place called Hippocrates that's in Florida, and Fort Lauderdale area. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but I went to visit them before. And say it again.
No, I don't follow these individuals. I don't, not because they're bad or anything. I'm sure they're great guys and girls. I just don't follow. I'm busy doing my work. I don't have time to follow.
Yeah, you're busy doing your work. Yeah, this is true. But it's like there's so many ways that people are taking that approach, to going raw vegan, and it's all interesting to me. And like what you said, it's not all about just going 100% raw vegan, but it's about incorporating more plant, just more vegetables and more fruits in your diet. The more green that you can put in your body, I think the better we are. Like I know whenever I switched to becoming vegan, I lost maybe 40 to 50 pounds just from not eating burgers and pork and ribs and stuff like that. My skin cleared up. I felt much better. But, eating vegetables and fruit, I've had more energy this week than I've had before. I don't feel groggy. I wake up I don't have brain fog anymore. It's like, whoa, this is interesting,
I wanted to tell you very quickly a funny anecdote. Most of my family is still in Italy, so I often talk to my sister. She's there in Turin, and they just she and her husband just got back from Egypt from vacation. They went to Egypt for a couple of weeks. And she was complaining to me. Now, mind you, that my sister is not a vegan by any stretch of the imagination. She doesn't even understand why. Okay, for example, when we had children, now my children are adults. When we first had children, she was baffled. She said, "Well, I don't understand why you don't feed them meat. Why don't you give them animal products, and then when they grow up, they can choose." Okay, so that's my sister. Okay, so she's not a vegan. She's not interested remotely about veganism, and she was remarking to me that when they were in Egypt, well, they were in a village, and in this village they didn't serve a lot of vegetables. And she said, "I really got sick because just eating meat and fish and cheese, I wanted something fresh." So
Mm.
you see the point. See the point. That
Yeah.
even your own body asks you for fresh food. And so it's so obvious. It's so obvious that we are made to eat fresh fruit, plenty, vegetables,
Mm-hmm.
salads, huge salads, not cooked food, processed food. That's natural. That's what it's good for the human body. And there's
Mm-hmm.
no questions about it.
Yeah, wow. So I know also I read your article, your recent article that you sent to me, and you're talking about lab grown meats. So what are your thoughts of lab grown meat and how it's gained so much popularity in such a short time, I feel?
So you're referring to the article in Nature, right?
Yes, sir. Uh-huh.
Now it's interesting to me that you said that lab-grown meat is gaining popularity. I would have to ask you, what do you mean by that? Because as far as I know, and mind you, I live in New York City, in Manhattan, and
Yes, sir.
if you don't find it in Manhattan, you don't find it anywhere. I have not seen any lab-grown meat in any
Mm-hmm.
grocery store. It is a gimmick. Do not believe the hype.
Yes, okay.
Obviously, you have to understand
And that's what I know you're about to lead there.
yeah, there's a 10 billion, at least $10 billion of investment. Okay, so obviously the lab-grown meat developers want you to believe that lab-grown meat is coming. It's around the corner. We got it. It's
Mm-hmm.
there. It's coming in a store near you. No, no. It's in its infancy. We're not even close to that.
Mm-hmm.
So all this popularity, this hype is put on by the developers, by all the people who have an interest in lab-grown meat. But the obstacles before we get there are very, very big, very difficult. So there's no popularity yet. They're just
You're right.
talking.
And yes, yes. For instance, they're just talking about it. You're right. Like for instance, I follow a lot of accounts online that are vegan based, like Veg News and other accounts like that. And the popularity, because when I first started researching lab grown meat, I'm like, it's popular online, quote unquote, where people are talking about it and where you have vegan activists who's like, yes, this is going to save the animals' lives. But my dad and my family, I asked them, would you eat, lab grown meat, or are you out in the public? And people are like, hell no, I'm not going to eat this. I don't want to eat it. So what you said makes a great, example that there's a lot of companies, I know Bill Gates has funded lab grown meat and other, people who are billionaires. I feel like they have this motive, this mission to kind of fool people to think that this is going to really save us all, or save everybody who is a meat eater. And when I started going down, down the rabbit hole and really researching it, I'm like, wow, they're spending hundreds of $1 millions for these factories, and they're
Billions.
still emitting a lot of emission and things like that. Billions,
Yeah.
you're right, billions of dollars. I was like, something doesn't seem right.
So they're spending a lot of money, and you have to understand that they have been talking about lab grown meat. Now it's going on 20 years. Okay, it's not a
Mm.
new thing. They've been trying and trying and trying. There are a lot of you can we can. It's up to you. We can get into the nitty gritty, all the details. I can explain to you what's happening, but in any case.
Yeah, I would love that. Yeah, because I think you have more knowledge than most people I've talked to.
Yeah, so at present, lab grown meat is not viable. Lab grown. So let's just explain this. What does that mean, lab grown meat? It means that you need to do a what is called a biopsy. Okay, simple biopsy. Well, it's not simple. You have to take you have to take a certain kind of cells, not just any kind of cells. You have to take these cells and then you have to process them in a very specific way. You have to blast them in a very specific way. And then they will grow in a like a petri dish. Now, in order for these muscle cells to grow, they need a medium. That's the problem. What
Mm.
the medium, they take it from, it's called fetal bovine serum, which is more expensive than uranium. It's more expensive than diamond.
Wow.
Very expensive. That's one of the reasons why lab grown meat today would be prohibitive. It would be a steak would cost you $10,000. I don't know. Because this fetal bovine serum, it's taken from, well, the term explains where it's taken from. Okay. And that's the medium. Now, there's another problem. All you get is clear and lean muscle fiber, which would be probably not very appetizing to meat eaters. Okay, so you have to simulate what happens in the animal body. What does that mean?
Hmm.
Nerves, tissue, blood, and fat. Those factors theoretically scientists are able to, eventually they will be able to control them theoretically. But we're still very far from that day. Okay, so this is one of the main problems. So at present, the medium comes from animals. The cells, the biopsies, come from animal donors, and it's a very expensive process to begin with. So at present, all those environmental goods that they promise
Hmm.
don't exist. They're just a myth. They don't exist. And mind you, in order for the lab grown industry to claim certain benefits in terms of environment, they cannot do that now. It's impossible. How could you possibly do it? You have to put it on the market, people consume it, and you run tests for years, and then you can do the math and determine exactly the amount of greenhouse gases, the amount of carbon, the amount of the environmental footprint, as they say. But at this point, everything that you read about, scientists estimate that it's going to save the planet, it's going to save here. All that is just speculation. There's no evidence. And if you don't believe me, and please don't believe me, no one should believe anyone. Do your research. There's no
Hmm.
evidence. Right
There's
now,
no evidence.
how could there be evidence? It's not viable yet. It's not on the market. It's not available domestically or anywhere else in the world. How could you possibly run any test? It's all suppositions. See, so this is one small aspect of the overall problem, the overall issue about lab-grown meat. And if you want me to continue, I'll be glad to continue with
Yeah,
other.
I would love to, because I see that, do you feel like that these CEO of these companies are just trying to get a quick check, just because it's quote unquote popular online, and they can feel good by being activists, and I think a lot of vegan people get behind people who have this activist mentality, even though it's not really saving the earth at all.
I think that there's a little bit of both. There are some people who might really believe it,
Mm-hmm.
that if we produce and we are able to succeed with this lab grown meat. But you see, that's the very problem. The problem is that not only do you have to be able to overcome those obstacles, you have to find number one, you have to find a medium. They're working on it, by the way, right now. You have to find a plant-based medium instead of the bovine serum.
Mm-hmm.
They're working on it, but it's still at its infancy. We don't know if it's going to work, it's going to be viable. We don't know yet. Eventually, maybe they will do it. That's one obstacle. The second obstacle is clearly the biopsy. Now, you can argue if the biopsy is taken from without pain, without suffering, perhaps it's not as bad. After all, what's at stake here is the environment. So it's better to take biopsy from donors, animals, rather than the current state of the livestock industry, right? Maybe. We don't, but in any case, that would mean that you still need to raise animals, and a large number of animals. So you've got to understand that animals will never disappear from the equation. You have the animals. Animal farming will never disappear. Also, you have to consider, you mentioned you live in Texas, and you used to be a meat eater.
Yeah.
And you do know meat eaters. And
I
you
know a
do
lot of
know,
them.
right, and you do know how stubborn they are. So stubborn that they will never even contemplate going vegan. You know that some meat eaters, I'm sure you know this, some meat eaters are really angry at vegans. They really hate vegans.
That's true.
Why, I don't know, but they hate vegans. And you think that those kinds of individuals who are, I would say, I'm sorry if I offend someone, but that kind of behavior seems to me very close-minded. That behavior, veganism is stupid, vegans are idiots, I want my meat. And my children, don't even come close to my children, because I've heard interviews of people saying, no way, I give my children real milk, real meat, because I want them to get strong and all that BS that you hear. And you want me to believe that those individuals are the individuals who will have to do a switch. They will have to go from the animal agriculture, okay, that they know, that makes them human. Okay, they are proud. People are proud of animal husbandry and animal agriculture. That's the world. That's nature for them. That's the natural order. God gave us animals to take care of. We have the stewardship of the earth. We use animals. We exploit animals. There's nothing wrong with that. It's in the Bible. It's in the Quran, right? How could you possibly convince those people, those individuals, hey, listen, stop raising animals for food, which is something that your family has been doing for generations and generations. stop producing uh, animal byproducts. By the way, I don't know if you know this, but they can make lab grown milk.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So that's another thing. But how could you possibly convince those people? I'm not saying that it's impossible, but I'm saying that given the state of things, we are in this mess precisely because meat eaters and as you know, meat consumption is growing exponentially. Okay. Yes, we hear about veganism and vegan cheese and vegan this, but meat consumption is growing exponentially. How do you explain that?
Mm.
You have to convince all those people what are you doing is wrong for the environment, despite the fact that there are many studies, scientific studies that say no, it's not wrong for the environment. If we do it well, animal agriculture can be good for the environment, even beneficial to the environment. Okay, so you have to convince those people and the farmers and the lobbyists and the politicians that you have to do away with meat, traditional animals, and so go like this, and
Hmm.
increase the amount of lab grown meat. In what universe do you think that's going to happen?
I
Because
don't. I don't
that
think
is
not in this one.
right. Because that's the only way that you can that lab grown meat can save the planet. Assuming the best case scenario, people stop eating meat, or the consumption of meat is so negligible, it's so small that it's not going to do anything, and the rest is going to be lab grown meat, assuming that running those bioreactors, because it's not a petri dish, there are giant bioreactors where the muscles, the meat grows. So
Hmm.
assuming that all that stuff is going to be viable, it's not going to pollute the environment, it's not going to use too much energy, and all this we don't know. We don't know. But assuming best case scenario, that's the way it will have to be if you want the claimed results, the alleged results that they are screaming left and right. So as you can see, it's not as easy as they want you to believe. It's an enormous obstacles, not only technical, scientific obstacles, but also social, social, psychological, and philosophical obstacles. It's very complicated, and then in the end, you pause a moment and think, why are we doing all this? We already have the solution. The solution is vegetables, plants. That's the solution.
Hmm.
So why perpetuate the idea of meat?
That's yeah, that's right, and that's why I wanted to have this interview and create this mini documentary that I'm working on for my YouTube channel because I'm like, why create something when we already have the answer right here in front of us? Plants could feed everybody in the world. I honestly think, but I just saw that, I saw that there were some vegans who were actually trying, these lab-based meats are rooting for these companies like, yes, this is going to save us. This is going to save the environment. And when I started to research and look at these, what you say, bioreactors, there's these big metal vats. And if you're thinking about bacteria and viruses and things like that, I mean, you have to really be almost 100% clean in order for someone these bioreactors to get infected with some type of bacteria. Just think how many millions of dollars you lose if the whole like two or three of them get some type of disease or bacteria growing in them, and it's
Yes, the
it's,
kind
it's
of
just mind blowing.
environment. Yes, the
Yeah.
kind of environment that they needed to grow that would has to be sterile, completely 100%, as you said. It's very difficult. Very very difficult. But the other thing that you mentioned is very interesting, and one of the questions that you emailed to me previously, I was thinking about it. What is that going to do to veganism? Because now, you see, there's an interesting thing that I've written about this, by the way, in my books, in my papers, in articles. I've written about this before. And what exactly is veganism? Now, if we go by Wikipedia or vegan organizations or vegans on the street, veganism seems to be an attitude or a philosophy or a practice according to which we don't eat, we don't consume animals or animal products or byproducts. And also it extends to, and that's an interesting thing because some vegans stop right there, whereas other vegans take it all the way and shun, for example, animal entertainment and the use of animals altogether. Okay, so leather, going to a circus where they use animals. Right? So there are different degrees of what it means to be a vegan. Okay. Now, the interesting question that I always found it fascinating. Why? What's the thrust of the argument? What is the motivation? Why abstain from consuming animal products? Well, typically, when you ask, I say typically because when I give talks, when I teach at university, students or people I know on the street, when I have discussions, they typically say one thing. It's always the same answer. That it seems to me, I don't like it because it seems to me more like parroting, like a parrot. And the answer is because, I'm not saying that is a bad answer. I'm just saying that a lot of people just say that because they heard it before. They heard it from Peter Singer or this guy or the other guy. The answer is because using animals the way we're using animals causes pain. Okay? Unnecessary pain at that. It causes suffering. And suffering, the argument would be suffering is bad. Unnecessary suffering is bad, is immoral, is not good. Using animals the way we're doing causes animal suffering and pain. Therefore, it is immoral or wrong or whichever way you wanted to put it. It's bad to do it. Okay. What if it's not done in such a way that it causes animal suffering and pain? Are you going to do it? Are you going to eat it? Well, Peter Singer, I don't know if you ever heard of the name Peter Singer.
Yes, sir, I have.
Right. So Peter Singer, who's the god of animal ethics, would say, no. For example, if it turned out, let's say, imagine, right, in the future, scientists discover with 100% certainty that animals do not feel any suffering, any pain whatsoever. It's like René Descartes, the 16th century, 17th century philosopher, René Descartes, who said animals are just like robots. They're robots. They move, but they don't have a soul. They don't have feelings. They make noises, scream. They don't feel any pain. Suppose it's like that. Then it means that we can eat animals. Now, you see where I'm going with this. My point is, if all these vegans who are interested in lab-grown meat, if you can tell them, if they're guaranteed that the piece of flesh that they're eating created in a laboratory was produced through a process that did not require any animal suffering. What's going to happen to veganism? You ask me, what's going to happen to veganism? Well, think about it. What's going to happen to veganism? My guess is that many, many, many vegans will come out of the closet, and in a funny sense, and start. No, because I say that because it seems to me that many vegans would love to eat meat, but they don't do it because they say, no, it's wrong. I can't do it because it causes pain. I believe in the cause. So they don't do it. Imagine if there's a steak and they say to you, no pain, no suffering was necessary in order to produce the steak. What's going to happen to veganism? A lot of vegans are going to start eating meat.
I totally think so, because I feel like a lot of vegans will actually eat meat if they took away the pain and suffering part from it.
Oh, but Will, here's the interesting part. Now, obviously, this is look, this is not a scientific argument, huh? So you don't blame it on me. I'm just telling you. I'm just speculating. Okay.
Yeah.
Not scientific argument. So, but I predict that it's very likely that a lot of vegans will start eating meat, indulge in lab-grown meat, because they say, hey, we can have this without the guilt. It's good for the environment, no suffering. Let's do it. Now, let me ask you a question, Will. Suppose that there's a moment in the lifetime of a hypothetical vegan, let's call it Will, okay, and your lab-grown meat is not there. They put in front of you a steak that came from a cow. What are you going to do? You're going to look around and say, what the hell? You're going to eat it. Now, this in logic is called the slippery slope fallacy. Okay, so you can accuse me of doing the slippery slope fallacy, but I believe that there's a good reason to believe that that's going to happen, because one, if vegans start eating meat, and food is so addictive as it is, we all know that. That's why it's hard to get off certain foods, right? You know that pastries are not good for you, but it's hard because they're good, right? And you want to eat them.
Oh yeah.
Now you start eating meat and you get that taste. What's going to replace that taste? The Impossible Burger? It ain't going to do it. It ain't going to do it. So it's very likely that we're going to slip down the slide, and a lot of vegans will do it. But that's my speculation. That's what I think. The point, the bottom line, my point is that I personally cannot see any benefit in developing lab-grown meat unless you can guarantee that meat eaters will stop eating traditional meat. And as I said, I don't believe it. I have to see it. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I believe that what I predict is that lab-grown meat will, first of all, I predict that it will fail and it will go away. But if it doesn't go away, I predict that it will become yet another option on the menu. Just like veganism. Now veganism has been swallowed by the big corporations. Now you can go to McDonald's and get a vegan burger. You can go to a Burger King, White Castle. Tyson is producing vegan stuff. So you see the industry has, instead of fighting veganism, said, "Oh, let's embrace it.
Let's embrace it." They see the dollars.
Yes, because but the problem is now veganism is no longer veganism. We're going to destroy the meat. We're that kind of thing. No, veganism now is, you want vegan? There's vegan. You're a homosexual? That's fine. You're trans? That's fine. You're a vegan? That's fine. You see the kind of spirit of today's society. We embrace all cultures. We embrace all sexual preferences, and that's fine. That's great. That's beautiful. But that's what veganism has become. Just another item on the menu. It's not a radical movement anymore. No one cares. You go to the store and I see very often when I shop, I see these people with their baskets. They have meat and they have the impossible. So they go home and they try it. Or maybe they have. So you see my point. Veganism has been swallowed by the meat industry. The meat industry now is dominating. It's controlling veganism. It's saying, you want vegan? I'll give you vegan. And as a matter of fact, recently I published some studies where it shows that meat eaters are the biggest consumers of vegetarian, vegan meats. So that's and so that's why I say I highly doubt that lab grown meat will become that popular, because only if it becomes that popular, as I said, it's got to, you have to phase out animal agriculture, but really drastically, and all of a sudden, all those people from Texas, from Nebraska, right, those people who swear by meat, they're going to have to buy and consume lab-grown meat. I don't see it. If you see it, maybe.
Yeah, I definitely don't see it. And I just, going back to what made me want to do this interview and also work on this project, it's because I see that, a lot of people who are vegan activists or, stronghold vegans on the internet, they are making it popular by just spreading the news online. But I was like, I don't see people saying they want to eat lab grown meat. I was like, my dad loves deer. My dad loves pork. He loves beef. He loves raccoon, fish, all of it. And he's like, I'm going to eat my meat.
Right.
So
if you were to tell them, but what about the environment? Who cares about the environment? That's what we've been doing. God gave us these animals. We've been doing this for millennia, right? So how could you convince a person that thinks that way, that no, you have to think about the environment and the lab-grown meat in the bioreactor?
They don't care.
Get out of town. I don't care. I want my milk. I want my meat.
Yep. You're totally right.
Now, if they did really care about the environment, then they would go vegan or vegetarian at least, right? But they don't really care. And so I find it, knowing human beings, considering the fact that I know human beings, I've read history, I don't think that that's going to happen.
Yep. I don't.
But again, even if it's somehow possible, you still have to determine whether it's really better, because we don't know that. We don't know that. Yes, it's true that you remove the cows ruminating and producing GHG, but at the same time you have bioreactors. You have electricity, bioreactors, possibility of infections, possibility of breakouts. You name it. We don't even know. We are at the infancy. That's why I always find it funny when people say it's coming. Live grown meat is the next. No, it's not even halfway there.
No, I don't even think it's 1%. I really don't, because just if you have to conquer the meat eaters, it's not the people who are, really just 100% vegan. It's like when I was growing up as a kid, I was always funny about eating meat, even though I ate it. Like whenever I had a piece of chicken, and like the little brown and black part you get from the gristle on a chicken bone. Like I did not even want to even eat that part. And whenever I went to stay at my grandmother's house and my aunt and my grandmother's like, "What? I don't see how your mom is raising y'all. Y'all act like you don't want to eat meat." I was like, in my head as a kid, I'm like, it's kind of like
Gross.
gross. Why am I eating these the veins and everything like that?
Yeah.
And also, whenever it comes to steaks and pork chop, I didn't want, like, people like, "Ooh, I want a big juicy steak." I was like, no, I want it as thin as possible. I don't want to have to. It was always in my head. And one really got me thinking. I used to work at my first job at 16. I used to work at Pilgrim Pride. It's a chicken corporation. It's the second largest chicken corporation compared to Tyson. So I used to collect chicken eggs every single day for the summer, and I would collect maybe like 5,000 to 6,000 eggs, and these were like the hatching eggs. And a lot of people don't understand, like, farming is crazy. Like these eggs were not for people to eat, but these were like eggs for other chickens to hatch. And when I walked into the chicken farm, there was 20,000 chicken hens in each house, 5,000 roosters, so 25 and 25, so 50,000 chickens in total. And Dr. Alvaro, the smell, the ammonia, how chickens in that type of condition, they basically will eat each other. If one of them gets sick, this other chicken knows it's like it's opportunity. I can have more food. They're gonna peck this chicken to death. And I saw that. I'm like, what are we doing? And these companies, they don't waste any part of this chicken. So whenever a chicken dies or some type of disease or something like that, we're not just going to toss that chicken or something like that. We're going to put it in the freezer, and then it's going to become dog food.
It maximizes profit.
Yeah, so it really opened up my mind. I'm like, wow, this is pretty interesting.
I always say to people, you think that the meat industry is doing it for your benefit because you need proteins. The meat industry doesn't care a flying rat's behind about you. They care about maximizing profit.
Yep.
To the point where
That is it.
they do weird things to animals. Like, for example, I'm sure you know that the cattle they drill portholes into their stomachs.
Mm-hmm.
So the technician can reach inside the stomach of the cow while she's ruminating, and take samples of the feed to determine the best feed, the one that costs the least, and it's the one that digests the most.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just you wouldn't believe it, the stuff that they do to animals. There's no
wow.
there's no compassion. There's no when they say, for example, things like humanely raised. That stuff, don't believe that stuff. There's no such thing as humanely raised animals. Humanely means leave them alone. Don't reproduce them forcibly with forced reproduction.
Mm-hmm.
And then butcher them and expose them to that torture. It's horrific and barbarian, and people keep doing it.
They keep doing it. Yeah, because I have other interviews planned after yours. Later next week, I'm talking to a farm out of Georgia. They practice regenerative farming. And they've been, touted as one of the best farms, in the South and things like that. So I want to, hear different people's perspective on farming and lab grown meat. But like you said, I'm vegan for, the animals, and just, I never really, even though I ate meat, it wasn't something I'm like, oh, wow, I can't I can give it up. It wasn't hard for me to give up beef and pork and chicken. And the last thing I did eat meat was fish. And the reason why it was harder to give up is because I was a fisherman. I was more invested in the lifestyle of angling and catching fish than like the taste of it more so. I was more like it's a sport to me. But once I started really figuring things out, I'm like, I don't want to do this either. I'd rather just eat some really great mushrooms. Now, I love mushrooms. Oyster mushrooms, lime mains. I'm a mushroom type of guy because I feel like they have a great texture. You can saute them, fry them, whatever you want to do. They taste amazing. So that's how I feel on that.
Yeah, there's so much food to eat. There's no reason for anyone in the 21st century to eat meat, animal flesh. And the only thing that you hear over and over is this protein thing. And that's another myth that people. By the way, I'm sure you've heard it many times. What do
So
you do?
many.
What do you do for proteins? There, people, many people, and even educated people, by the way, because sometimes I talk to some of my colleagues. These are PhDs, and doesn't make any difference. They are under the impression that the way it works for calories, it's the same way that works for proteins. So in other words, you go out for a run around Central Park, 6 miles, and you burn a certain amount of calories, depending on how big you are, how heavy you are, your metabolism, all sorts of things, right? So let's say you burn 600 calories or 500 calories. Now, people think that it's the same thing. It applies, the same principle applies to proteins, but it isn't.
Mm-hmm.
You don't just go to the gym and you burn proteins like you burn calories. And yet you see people, I'm sure if you go to the gym, you see those gym rats with their shakes, big shakes, because they're under the impression. And once again, the protein, the supplement market is happy about it.
Yeah.
Because that's what they want. They want you to consume that stuff. They want you to believe that you need to overload on proteins because now you're going to the gym, you need more.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the same time, then you hear Harvard Medical School, the Mayo Clinic. These are not vegan organizations, mind you. You know that, right? They say American people consume too many proteins. Now, how do you explain that? How do you explain that? A lot of the trouble that we have is because people eat diets that are overloaded with proteins.
Yeah.
How do you explain that? Because there's this obsession on the one hand that you need more proteins. Oh, you started your program at the gym. You need more proteins. No, you don't need more proteins. Maybe you need to eat more calories, obviously, because you're burning more. And so this misconception perpetuates, and that's one of the reasons why, believe it or not, stupid reason, but reason why people always are afraid of going vegetarian or vegan, because what am I going to do for proteins?
That's the thing. That people are like, how are you going to get your protein? But you think about cows and gorillas, one of our closest relatives. Like they only eat greens, and they're strong, muscles, big, and you're like, there must be something to this.
Let me tell you another problem. Another problem is that it's something that really nags me, that society has invented these labels, very misleading labels. If you eat pasta, that's carbs. If you eat fruit, it's sugar. And if you eat meat, it's proteins. And if you eat olive oil and avocado, that's fat. Excuse me. If you eat bananas, first of all, it's not sugar. It's called carbs. Those are carbs too. But people refer to carbs. When people say carbs, they refer to pasta grains. That's what they mean. But those are not the only carbs. Fruit is a carb. Okay? Now, what is this label? Proteins, fats. There's fat in bananas. There's
That's true.
proteins in bananas. There's carbs in bananas. There's proteins in rice, in beans. There's fat in beans. There's fat even in lettuce. Even lettuce has fat. Even lettuce has proteins. So that thing doesn't help. Omega-3, the omega-2, the omega-3, the omega-55, all that is just gibberish. It means absolutely nothing. Where do you get the omega-3? I have to eat fish. Where does the fish get the omega-3? By eating another fish? And what about the other fish that is eaten by the other fish? By the other fish? It's the same thing like the gorilla. You need proteins. Cows give you proteins. Where do they get the proteins? From grass. All but cows are different. Different how? How are they different? They need proteins just like you. It's just a frustrating society is frustrating.
Yeah.
Because people are ignorant and they want to stay ignorant. They don't want to, because it makes sense to them and it's convenient to them. So it is convenient to be ignorant and say, if I stop eating meat, I'm not going to get the proteins and the B12, the omega-3. But the B12, where do you get it from? From the cows. Do you know that they inject B12 in cows? They get supplements because they cannot get enough B12. So you might as well take a pill or spray the B12, just like the cow.
Wow, I didn't know
And
that.
yes. So I mean, all the supplements, they give it to animals because they think about the kind of lives that they live. These animals, they live in horrible conditions. They can't get enough sun, enough live, fresh air. They're sick. That's why they get supplements. And it's so frustrating to me. And it's frustrating the idea that vegans contemplate eating lab-grown meat just because it's made in a lab. I'm sorry, but to me, it's trash. I don't want to hear about meat. I wouldn't listen if they told me today, if they told me that when you stab a cow or a chicken, that animal feels no pain. It's like a rock. It's like a boulder. You do nothing to it. It's like you're kicking your chair, your furniture. I will not eat them. I don't care whether I wrote a paper. I can forward that to you.
Yes, I would love that.
Yes, where I argue that animal suffering is important, but it's not the only criterion. You should think about other criteria as to why you shouldn't eat animals. It's not just the suffering, because what if they tell you they don't suffer? What are you going to do? Oh, yeah, you go to town. You start going to Whole Foods and you start loading on meat and poultry and eggs and cheese? No, I wouldn't touch it either. Even in that case, I will forward you that paper. It's interesting.
Yeah, because I know the last article you forwarded me, I'm going to use that into my video as well, because the videos that I'm going to be planning to make is going to be kind of like a Vox or National Geographic type of videos, how I plan to do my next video series. And I wanted it to be educational and rememberable. And I want people to really listen to it, be like, wow, I never thought about it like that. And that's why I wanted to interview you, because after hearing your perspective, when you were talking to the ladies on a Zoom call, I was like, I've been vegan for 6 years. I never heard anybody talk about it like this.
Yeah. And yeah, that's an interesting article. I wrote another one previously, years ago, about lab-grown meat when the thing just started. So I was one of the first ones who wrote against lab-grown meat, by the way, from an ethical point of view.
Wow, yeah, if you can send that to me, I greatly appreciate it because I've been researching a lot of articles, looking at videos, and trying to really dive into this and make sure that, I'm hitting every angle and viewpoint and everything like that.
But mind you, that most of my arguments, except for the books, but all the peer-reviewed articles that I published, if you Google them, you can find them online, free download. But in any case, I will forward you those two papers. And if you're interested,
Okay, that worked.
a couple of years ago, I was engaged in a discussion with two other philosophers about vegan nutrition for children and what is the morally right thing to do as a parent, whether you should raise your children as vegans. I thought it was just nonsense what they were saying, because one of them was even contemplating the fact that, morally speaking, you have an obligation to, even if you yourself as a parent are a vegan, you have an obligation to feed your children animal products. I thought that was outrageous. Why would you want to do that? What would be the point? Oh, because the proteins, give me a break with these proteins. Enough. I've heard enough of these proteins.
Right.
So that's an interesting discussion too, if you want to.
Yes, I would love that. That's just all interesting to me. I definitely want to read up on more on that as well.
Yes.
Cool. Dr. Alvaro, you answered all my questions. I had all the questions written out, but you hit every single one of them. I'm glad you already read through the questions, because I feel like it's helpful sending your guest the questions beforehand so they can formulate, what they want to talk about. And you gave me some great information to work with.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad I did that.
Yeah, and I would love to, if I'm ever in New York, I would love to sit down with you with for a raw vegan dinner or something like that, or a lunch, because I just think that you're very smart, you're brilliant, and we need more voices like you that are just more open minded to be like, hey, this is why I do this, and just give them the reasons why you do it.
Yes. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed our conversation. I hope we can do it again. And if I had to say one final thought, is that to vegans, be careful, because veganism is being stolen away from us.
Mm.
And who's stealing it? The big meat corporations. They're trying to accommodate everyone. They're trying to make veganism is just another option.
Just another option. Wow.
That's not what it is. Veganism is supposed to be a militant position going against destroying the meat industry, convincing people that the meat industry is bad, not convincing that we can coexist. See, that's what they're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
The meat industry is saying, okay, I get you, vegans. We can coexist. We can be friends. We don't have to fight. That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's what's all.
Wow. Well, that's thank you so much for that last point, Dr. Alvaro. I really appreciate it. Like, I know as a vegan influencer, some of my first brand deals, I didn't know, I was excited to, like, wow, I'm making a living, eating vegan and talking about it. But after one of my first major brand deals, I researched the company afterwards, and I was like, wow, this company, this is a parent company of Tyson, and no wonder they paid me so much, because they have billions of dollars.
They do.
Yeah, so wow.
That's how they can afford producing lab-grown meat.
Because they already have the money.
They have the money.
Wow. Well, Dr. Alvaro, I would love to do another chat like this, maybe later in the fall or winter, and it would be great to, get my audience, involved in it. We can set up something like this and have a live discussion, bring my 100,000 plus audience from Instagram over, and I think it'll be great to have a talk and a discussion,
Yep.
we can promote your book on it as well. Going into raw, veganism, that'll being more sales, more money for you. Because I think a lot of people are interested, but they just don't hear anyone talking about it like this. And yeah, that's the
Yes.
book. That's the book I have now. Because the first one I ordered was the wrong one, but that one is coming in like Tuesday.
Yeah, there it is. It's it's an interesting discussion. I focus on the moral aspect of raw veganism. So
Mm-hmm.
if we're interested, but definitely keep me posted because
Yeah. You broke up at the
I'm
end for a
interested
second.
in following up with other talks.
All right, I think I'm losing you, Doctor. There you go. There you go.
Oh,
But yeah, I would
well,
love to do this again. I have your email and everything like that. And yeah,
yes,
let's keep the conversation going because I think a lot of people are interested in this. And I think that more people should eat more vegetables and more fruits.
yep. It's not difficult. Just that fruit and vegetables.
Not
It
at
was
all. Not at all. That's it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. I know we've hit an hour and 10 minutes. The conversation was so good. I didn't want to stop. So,
yes,
so thank you
wonderful.
again. Thank you so much. And I look forward to speaking with you soon. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me. And if you ever have any more articles or something, a new book launch or something, you want me to help you promote it, I would definitely be down to do that.
All right. Oh, by the way,
Awesome.
there's there's a more layman version of the raw veganism, which is this one, the Book of Raw,
Mm-hmm.
and this one is more in I explain in layman terms, and I get into the diet itself, the problems and the solutions of how to become a raw vegan.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's great. That's great. I would love to get that one as well because I think there are some people, they want the layman's term. They want things to be on a fifth or sixth grade level to break it down. So they probably need more of a guide than reading like the overall aspect of what raw veganism is about.
Yes, that's what that is. Yeah, that's what this is.
Okay. I'm gonna get that one as well. Cool. Dr. Alvaro, I can't wait to, finish this whole entire project I'm working on. I got some other interviews of some people who are
That's
farmers
exciting.
to interview to hear their perspective on lab grown meat. So, but I just had to get you on it because I was like, Dr. Alvaro would be amazing to talk to. So I'm glad we had this chance to talk on this beautiful Friday in Texas, but not so beautiful Friday in New York.
It's raining. Still raining hard.
Ap- After this, I'll send you a picture of the sun outside.
Thanks.
Yes, but cool. Thank you again, Dr. Alvaro. And if you have anything else, you want to send my way, please feel free to do that.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right. Talk to you soon. You're welcome. Thank you.
Be well.
Bye bye. Bye bye.